What's up, you guys? So, we are here for another video, and I'm super excited because today we are working on my book that I'm writing. Um, it's called Project JavaScript as of right now because, okay, well, before I was calling it Project JavaScript because I didn't want to give away the title. But as of right now, the title is currently a work in progress. So we are working on the title as we get closer to the end of the book. I'm super excited. I am on chapter 8 and 9 um, out of a 19 chapter book. So I am almost so close to being halfway. And I'm super excited to get into today's video. So get your snacks, get your laptop, get a drink. Don't forget your drink. It's very early in the morning, and around this time, I love coffee with way too much sugar, a little bit of caramel, and some ice in it. So make sure you guys are ready and prepared to write with me as we work on my book, Project JavaScript. I'm super excited because working on this manuscript is super exciting. There's so much that I still have to work on, and of course, this is only draft one. But before we get started, I wanted to tell you guys about this book. Um, tell you about the book, why I'm writing it, and how the process is going, obviously, right? So let me tell you about the book before we move forward. So Project JavaScript is basically a journal that I'm turning into a book, right? And I know that sounds like an insane idea, but it genuinely did start off as a bunch of journal entries for me. And I have always been a writer. Since I was eight, when I was eight, I wrote my first short story, and it was 9 chapters. And it was about a group of teenagers that got abducted by aliens, and then they find themselves back on Earth, and they don't remember what happened, right? But they just know that they've been abducted by aliens, and they're navigating the world now that nothing is the same, nothing is normal, and they're each navigating, in different directions from the friend group, right? I wrote that story when I was eight, because I had it in my head that if I was to ever take up writing teen angst, the rest of these authors would be done. They would be cooked because I would outdo everybody, right? At like 8 years old, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I've been writing for a really long time. I picked up poetry when I was like 10 or 12, and have loved that ever since. And I started my spiritual journey when I was around 18, almost 19. And one of my favorite things to do was to combine writing unknowingly, not even paying attention, right? Unknowingly, just write and journal entries of my life and my spiritual journey and how it was going. And so recently, after COVID ended, I had been sticking to a new journal, and I got about halfway there, and I was like, I really love some of these journal entries. Like, I want to like figure out how I can extract them so they're somewhere where I can like always be reminded to reread them because they were so helpful. So fast forward a little bit, I eventually got, I think, around 75% of the way, which is crazy if you think about it. I didn't even finish the journal um of just it, and it just got very spiritual towards the latter half of the journal, and I was just writing entries daily of like my thoughts and my philosophy and my, spiritual journey intertwined, and what I've learned, and why I want to teach, and the things that I want to teach. And it just got very esoteric. And so I was like, wow, I need to turn this into a book, actually, like a dictionary of all my future teachings, right? Or things that I taught, right? Because I'm going to get to that. But we'll get to that later. But the things that I'm going to teach. And so eventually I just started, you know, um I started initially just transcribing them to my laptop on my MacBook, and it eventually turned into me formatting the book to look more like a novel. So that's it basically, all she wrote. The rest of the story is just, me accepting that, y- I can be scared of being a nonfiction author. I can deal with the imposter syndrome. And those things are fine. That's 100% natural. And the sooner I come to accept the fact that, more of my heart, more of my spirit doesn't want to run from this, so I'm not going to, the better. Because I'm not going to run from it. I'm not running again from my gifts, from my talent. I'm just going to embrace it. And one of those things that I had to learn was, my journey with writing nonfiction. And so, that's all she wrote. That's all she wrote. That's how we ended up here with me making this manuscript. And I'm super excited for you guys to be writing with me, to um, just listen while you're doing chores or cleaning around the house, right? Or, you know, just watching just because, you want to watch, or because you want to support. Because, that weird occurrence that by chance happened, and it brought us all here to this video together, in a community that is very passionate about the same things that my heart is super passionate about. But anyways, let's get started with this manuscript. Let's jump in. So, um, as like I said, I'm on chapter 8. Sorry. Um, I am almost halfway, and when I tell you I am glad, because I know that relief is going to kick in, and instead of me being inspired to rest like I should be, it's gonna give me my second win. I know it is. And I don't know, it feels different from writing any of my other books, because with Project JavaScript, every time I think um about that book, like my heart jumps, right? Like, it's crazy. It just gets me excited. So that is kind of my feel. But like I said, I'm on chapter 8. So, let me tell you how I structured this video, right? As you can tell, it's gonna be a very long video. So, I'm basically going to be writing, and while I write, I'm going to be doing some commentary, on, writer topics. So, you guys and I can be entertained as well. So, I'm not just gonna show a sped up video of me with lo-fi music, because I want to hear about the writing, in the writing content, not lo-fi music, right? Which is a whole different thing. But yes, I am going to be doing commentary over writing topics, and they're going to be very, very specific to writing, to being an author, pretty much. So if you're not writing a book, if you're writing, news articles or something like that, this video will still be entertaining because I'm just talking about the process in general. So nothing too specific, but nothing, off topic. Okay? So that being said, let's jump into the video. And so now we are going to have a conversation about how I think personally, and I can't tell if this is a personal thing or if this is like real life, but do you guys think that sentence rhythm changes how you perceive the intelligence of the reader as they're reading your novel? Because I think that they can. And I think that is, part of the reason why we edit so much, why we go through so many drafts. I'm still on draft one, and like I said 100 times already, I am still very hopeful. I'm still being patient at the moment, but I don't know how long that's gonna last. So I'm just hoping, you know, I survive until draft three, right? Let alone make it through the third draft, and I still might have to draft again. But I think that that is why, drafting, editing is important because really it's about how you understand the reader, how you understand how smart they are. And I don't know if that's like a real thing. I never heard anybody talk about it on the internet, so I'm gonna talk about it. And just yeah, indulge me um for the next 10 minutes, right? Because me personally, this is my philosophy on it. When you treat the readers like they're stupid, whether it be a young adult, whether it be an adult novel, whether it be a novel for kids, right? They can feel it. They can feel when you treat them like they're stupid. They can feel when you are, you know, um, drafting and editing super heavily. If you're editing super heavily or if you barely did any work, right? They can tell. They can feel it in the writing. And I feel like that is a good thing and a bad thing. Let's talk about it. So I think that that's a good thing because it encourages you, the writer, to not think so hard about trying to over explain, right? Because as authors, that's the easiest thing that we can do is lore dump, have a really terrible, awful, trash beginning of a novel and to over explain some. Like it's just what we do. And it's not bad if it's in there. I'm not saying it's bad if it's in there. I'm just saying don't do it the whole book. Don't do it the whole book. So that is a good lens to have in perspective when you're editing and if you're like me. Um Let me explain. So I personally am terrified of editing because I feel like there's no right or wrong answer, like a definitive right or wrong answer. It's just kind of a perception. So it kind of scares me to edit my own books, even though I'm forced to at the moment because I'm a young, dumb, broke influencer and I don't have the money to just hire someone to edit my entire novel because it's expensive. And I think sorry, I had to take a drink. I think that it scares me because not because of like the grammar or I don't understand, sentence structure or when to like take away a sentence, right? To like cut something short. It's not because I don't know how to storytell. It's because the criticism is so based off of a perception that I have never understood. To be honest, to be transparent, I'm gonna be transparent. So, I don't know if that it specifically applies to anybody. I don't know if that specifically applies to you or anybody else that's watching, but regardless, if you are out there and you don't like editing, it's okay because we're on the same boat. No matter what it is, we're on the same team. Okay, we're team. Hire somebody else to edit it, right? Okay, that's fine. That's 100% okay because there are people that write books that would do it for a lot cheaper and they understand the process. They want to. They love that. They're passionate about it, right? Couldn't be me though. So, that being said, I think um I think when it comes to the perception of like what stays, what goes, when it comes to drafting, I understand it from the sense of a storyteller, not from a reader. And that's really weird to say because I don't really care for book criticism. I don't really care for book criticism because, you know, there are a million books and you felt the need to read a bad book is not a surprise, right? Not every book is going to be for you. Not every book is meant for you, right? Even though you might think that, right? You might, in you buying that book goes to show you, not every book you think it's for you is, meant for you to read. So I don't really appreciate book criticism because I read probably 70% of the books I like. If not like 80, I love, right? So a very smaller percentage of that are books I don't care for, I don't finish, but I never critique those books. I never critique a book. Like, I don't know. That's just not how I was raised. That's not how we do it. I'm homegrown when it comes to reading, right? So I don't know when it comes to like criticizing a book and understanding what needs to be edited out, right? When it comes to like line editing, right? Just saying line editing gives me like, I feel shook right now. Um, when it comes to line editing, I don't know because I don't criticize books like that. And it's crazy to think that a reader thinks that they can, like, it's different if you have published books, like several published books. Like, your goal is to be on the bestsellers list type of written a book, right? Not on AI slop or anything similar, right? Because we can criticize AI slop all day, but we are not criticizing people who are just putting out books just to have a book on paper, right? It's a waste of all of our resources, right? I would criticize that before I criticize the book. I would criticize you before I criticized the book, even still. So I don't understand line editing in that sense. I don't know, it's scary because if I would fall off the edge of the earth, okay? I would fall off the edge of the earth before I ever leaned on my head voice that I write in, that I use in my daily life. No, 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 no. And the idea that I would do it on accident is terrifying. Like my knees would start shaking. I would fall to the floor. I would start sweating and crying and screaming for water because I would die first. I would die before I ever did that. So that means that my books obviously have to go through a heavy, heavy, heavy editing process. And I'm doing it myself. So, not only is that terrifying, but it makes me paranoid, and that makes me more terrified. So, it's like that phrase that you learn in science, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transferred or was the other one transferred to something else? My my fear of line editing cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred or changed into a different type of energy, which is being terrified to line edit, right? But we're gonna see. That's why I was kind of documenting this process is because I am going to edit my first book ever down. And I mean, I'm going to press in for as long as I can, for as hard as I can. And if I'm not happy with the process, I'm going to take a break, take, 3 months, 2 months at the least, take a break, breathe about it, and then I'm going to come back and start writing again in a different book. And then when I feel casually ready, I'm going to pick that book up again and I'm going to edit it some more because I cannot be comfortable with my own head voice. It's just not going to work for me. It's just not going to happen. So, so yeah, I think that terrifies me. But yeah, to basically sum up the point of where I was going with that because I kind of went on a side tangent. I'm sorry. I apologize. But I was saying we were talking about rhythm change, right? So I think um in the perceived intelligence, right? So I was saying that I think that when it comes to editing, I think that it's kind of strange to me to have to perceive what the audience wants, but I can also in my book. I mean, like because I feel like I don't have control over that, right? What how you read the book it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me whether the book was good or was bad, right? It could have been the opposite for someone else, right? And that's why I think it's very subjective. But um what's not subjective is treating the reader like they're stupid. Don't treat your readers like they're stupid. Those are the only books that I put down, literally, unless it's like super dense and boring, right? Because dense writing does not equal good writing. I've read so many dense books that were good because it was fluent. As in one sentence to the next, you don't feel it. You don't have to go over the last sentence that you just read 100 times before you get down the page, right? Um dense writing does not equal good writing, but that doesn't mean that dense writing is bad, right? A lot of people have too many misconceptions about thick prose, right? Like I call it dense because I feel like that's the right word for it. Um like in English terms, but I've never heard anybody say it. But I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure that's the right way to say it, dense writing. But people are just dumb and don't know that. But also don't treat your readers like you have to put a simple sentence or um put a simple sentence or overly explain and lore dump and that's your only option or you're not writing, right? Because people like that who have this highway my way or the highway mentality are the ones who are wrong because that is ugly writing. That is just bad writing. It's not good. No bueno, bueno, bueno. It's tacky, and it's the number one reason why a lot of people put books down because it's just super simple when you're trying to be overcomplicated, right? So I've written books like that before. Um, and I'm going to tell you from a nonfiction point of view. So if you just so happen to only write fiction and have never written fiction, you can get some understanding from somebody who has written nonfiction. And I have written fiction. I wrote um, one story, but a bunch of series, right? So it was more than one book, but it was still fantasy. So from a nonfiction point of view, I think the biggest problem is the prose, right? A lot of prose can either be like overly, presumptuous, like I don't know how to say that word. I remember the day we learned it in English. I had a flashback of it just now. Superfluous. When you overdo it, right? You're being extra. How about that? How about that? Seventh grade teacher. I'm just saying. Um, it's just I really want to say that word, but I don't know it. Sup, super, super. I'm gonna look it up when I'm done with this video because I don't know it. But it can be very, over the top, right? Or it could try to be over the top, like super flowery words and super pretty prose, but it's just a miss, right? And yes, that is object subjective to the reader, and if the reader found it beautiful or comprehensive, right? Not pretentious, um, but I think there's a difference between a hit and a miss and being pretentious with your writing, right? When you are pretentious with your writing, it isn't pretty. It doesn't sound pretty. It just sounds like an attempt to fill in the spot, right? So, um, it just feels, like it's ubiquitous, like it's just there to be a filler, right? But the 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 thing is, it is subjective though, because it's not for those type of people. It's for people who do understand it or hit it, unless it's pretentious, to say the least. But a lot of what I've noticed as a nonfiction writer, though, back on point, um, shout out to me, shout out to me, is that, when you are presumptuous with your writing in a sense of, it's just kind of like filler words all crammed together to make up a sentence. Like, because, like, I don't know, like, you squint at it, you look at it, because your eyes go across the page so quick. Like, you process that and you're like, that made sense though. So you want to give it a chance, but at the same time, it's just like it doesn't have any respect for having pros, right? For having pros in certain spots for a certain reason, right? Because a book can, and typically aren't like that anymore, be only prose, right? Only flowery words and very like poetry except for without the rhymes, right? Um, Books typically aren't like that in the nonfiction anymore. They're more self-help, um, lenient. But I think that is the problem, is because there's such a wide variety of space to hit and miss when it comes to the flowery language, right? And with um, writing fiction, and then I'll compare the two. I think with fiction, it's always, always for me about it being pretentious in a sense of, oh, the book is so complicated, it's getting so complicated, and it's like I didn't sign up to read a uh, uh, uh um I don't want to drag that publishing, but I didn't sign up to read like a fifth grade level book. Okay, I didn't. I did not sign up for that. And you are telling me that um that the book is getting complicated when I should have felt that, That, I don't know. That's just me. That's just me. Don't get mad at me. And it's okay if you do get mad at me. I think I think I can handle it. I think I'm a big girl. Um, I think um really, it comes down to, in comparison, I think it really does come down to how to using that simpleness to shift, to transition, right? In fiction, I almost said fantasy. In fiction, it's very good for transitioning, very good um for like, you know, moving forward, right? To change the rhythm. But when it comes to nonfiction, it's very narrative based, unlike fantasy or young adult, right? It's very narrative focused. So you kind of, instead of playing with character personalities, character arcs, story plot, world building, lore, right? Instead, you play with things like perspective and what's the word? Incentive is another one that's so fun, giving the people a reason to read it, right? Like inciting incident, right? Everybody knows, or everybody here should know. Hopefully, I don't want to assume that you guys know what an inciting incident is, right? It's like that, but it's like, you know that the book is gonna have a plot twist. You just have to um try to figure out when and where and why. And then the plot twist is not a plot twist like a fiction book. It's more of like a bum bum bum. You found out the purpose of me writing this book, right? Like some real shit happened, and this is why I wrote it, not what I said at the beginning. And that one's a good one. But when it comes to that, I haven't wrote a book like that since. Hold on, let me think about it because I don't want to lie. Since my second book, because it was like a nonfiction book about um it was kind of like a memoir, and I it felt really weird because I was like, yeah, I love writing nonfiction, but I would never write a memoir. Like, that's dumb. It was kind of like a memoir, but it was about when I was in a music scene, a local music scene, and just like surviving the social food chain. But then like the big incentive of reading the book was at the end I confessed some. I mean, in the end, that's a little too late. Um, in the middle of the book, the plot peaked and I confessed something, and then the rest of the book was just a confession of the terrible, terrible things that I did in that local music scene and why I had to leave. Right? Kind of like an expose, right? Like a memoir, like a exposing article, right? But just with incentive, and you didn't see it coming. It's not obvious, but yeah, I think for fiction, it's very important to understand that for the perception of the reader, because you can be in the reader's head all you want to, or at least feel like it, especially while you're writing. I encourage that, but when you feel like you know the reader enough that you got them down 100% and you wouldn't doubt it, that's when you start messing up. That's when you actually start falling short, right? So you just need to be careful of that. You just need to be very mindful of it. Oh, I picked up my coffee and didn't even drink it, and then I was gonna put it right back down. Which I felt like was interesting, because um don't know. I don't think I have heard anybody create content about rhythm change or like the perception of the author's um oh, you know what? Now that I want to say my friend Kate has um She might have a long time ago, but it wasn't like the whole video was about it because she does um like she does videos where she does different famous authors writing routines, and I think I love Kate. Shout out to Kate. Um and I think she mentioned it talking about perceived intelligence when it comes to your reader. Um and then you also have to think about how smart is your character. How smart is your character? Because in narration, it's all about how much are you going to give away. And I love giving away a little bit at a time. I love it because pacing is my thing. I've come to find out, or I've always known, because it's been a long ass time since I found that out. But yeah, pacing is my thing. Giving away a little bit at a time is my thing. Rearranging stories is my thing. We're gonna talk about that eventually, because I could write a book from beginning to end and be like, whew, I finished it. Now let's mix it up, and then take some chapters from the end and throw them at the beginning, and take some chapters from the beginning and throw it at the end, and it makes sense though. It makes sense. It's so good. I love it. I don't know how I'm so good at it. I wrote a book a couple days ago. I mean, a couple days ago. Wow, I wrote a book. A book. I wrote a story. That's why it sounds so weird. I wrote a story a couple days ago on this writing app. Um, it was 9 chapters, and it was like a short story, and it was 9 chapters, and it was a story being told in first person. Keep in mind, um, of a story of like two best friends that broke up, and one went to college, and then they're forced back together in this old hometown because the big reveal was, I'm gonna spoil it because you can't read it now, but the big reveal was that she came back because her dad died, and she was mad at, I mean, she wasn't mad at the friend anymore who she left at the hometown. The one that stayed at the hometown was mad at her because it turns out she didn't know her mom had died. So, everybody had passed away, and then crazy things, that wasn't it though. Crazy things start happening, and people start passing even more, and it pulls them together even though they don't want to be. Um I wrote it on this writing app, and then next thing I know, just like I expected it, the app went down, or it like deleted my account. I don't really know what happened. I just ended up uninstalling it off my phone. But I was really sad about it because I had started a lot of journalism things on my projects on that app, and I wasn't posting them. They were saved in my drafts. So so much for that, right? But I was expecting it halfway. It just, of course, didn't happen until I let my guard down. But yeah, so yeah, I find it comforting to say the least, but you know how that goes. But yeah. So anyways, back on topic. Sorry. I got so distracted. Yeah. So I think that the most obvious difference between drafting and editing is, drafting is very you know writer mindset, whereas editing is like um line editing, like sentence structure, like grammar, right? Like that's obvious. There is more of a potential that people who don't write understand at least that much. But that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the psychological difference between drafting and editing. Because sometimes um I have to, like, I can't do one and then do the other. I have to be done with one to do the other, right? But that's kind of a rare occurrence. Maybe somebody who, you know, drafts their book and edits their own book can understand. But I don't know. I sometimes the psychological difference is too apparent in my head, right? Like I'm just so hyper focused um on the difference, the contrast of those two things. Not so much like a multitasking issue, right? Because as a writer, I feel like writing is probably one of those things where we should get encouraged to multitask, right? But that's not the point. The point is that I think the the main difference is okay, well, let's start from the other way around, right? I think that um a difference that a lot of people could know, though, the difference between drafting and editing is, drafting is just working on like the plot, right? Um some people could know that. They might, have heard about it or something, but I feel like that's a lesser known than, anything I've said before. But that being said, I think that is probably the hardest one, right? Or at least in my head it is. In my head, I've never experienced anything bad, right? But it can be the hardest to deal with. Having to write more, having to take away, are two totally separate things, but they are both heavy, on especially on the heart of a writer, because we dread it, at least a little bit, right? Right? You guys aren't gonna leave me hanging, right? But yeah, I think the psychological difference between um drafting and editing is kind of like the headspace you're in. But not only the headspace you're in, it's also a lot of like um where our intention is, not just the focus, right? But let's go back one. So I think I always think of um popular writers, right? Um People on the bestsellers list, right? That have a well-known um writing routine, right? That people copy, people do those writing routines so they can feel like that author. Um, I always think of that when I think of drafting, because they wake up early, they get their coffee and write all day, or write in the morning, break for lunch, right back to writing, and then take the afternoon off, right? Or something like that, something similar to that. But I always find it okay, the truth is, the truth is, I honestly don't have a lot of control over my writing schedule. I just write when I can write, and I need to start focusing more on my intention with that. But I think it's because writing is not full time for me. So a part of me wants to write full time, but knows it's not practical. A part of me is screaming, you're not gonna be a full time writer, especially after your first book. Like you need to be a lot more realistic. But a part of me wants the schedule of a full time writer, not just to write, but in the sense of, you know, I think that it is productive. It like how, well, I don't want to use the word productive, but how like it just makes you feel better in the process, right? Um and it's very healthy, very conductive, right? That's why I find it interesting that people do other people's writing schedule, like not for fun, but like genuinely that's the writing schedule they're on, because it's like they are willing and open minded to being exploring different paths for the healthy side of being productive, the conductive or conducive, the the productivity of it, right? Doing it the right way in their heads. And I find that so interesting, especially people that use multiple different authors' writing styles or explore like a bunch of different ones, right? It's so interesting. So, yes, I don't find it hard. Well, okay, see, my thing is this. I find it hard to go back and change endings of my chapters because I think, you know, getting started every time feels like starting a blank page for me when I'm writing chapter by chapter, which I do rarely, but I do it, okay? So, I think the hardest part for me is warming up, getting good, and then wrapping it up is the hardest part for me. Um, Wrapping it up because that is where my mind is the most focused and I'm like so in tune. I feel like I'm in my flow. And so that makes me feel like that's the good part, right? Like that's the part I know I was in my bag, right? But when you're drafting, you have to learn to let go. You have to learn that, you know, sometimes putting a lot of energy, a lot of effort is still not enough. It's still not enough sometimes. And you have to keep going, not that it wasn't enough, but you have to keep a little bit more, right? Just a little bit more. And that's okay to think, to accept, to understand, right? But with editing, I and this is just me being transparent. I honestly dread the idea of, not getting it right and not having anyone to tell me that I'm doing it wrong, right? And it turns out to be a waste of time. A part of me is scared because personally feel like I'm not good with grammar. Um, because when I read my own works, I he- hear my own voice, and I don't like that, right? But that's just something I need to work on, right? It's just my word choice. Um, so that always leads me to like cringe when I think of editing grammar, um, sentence structure. I kind of love sentence structure, but I do struggle with it. So it's kind of like a unrequited love, right? Like I love you, but sentence structure does not love me back. Okay, but I think with grammar, it just scares me because I don't want to be perceived in that voice, even though it is my voice. Even though I love my voice. I do love my head voice, but it could be better, right? Right? Like it could just be better, and that is enough for me to want to do something about it, more than just be scared about it, right? But I just kind of relate that back to editing because I don't like changing grammar because I don't have anybody to tell me the that there is a right and wrong answer and what the right answer would be, right? I just um clearly I need to learn that I could just freelance it and hire someone to edit the book for me, but I don't necessarily have the means or opportunity to find someone who would, first of all, do an entire book. Um, this manuscript is only 19 chapters long, not a long book at all, but I still won't be able to find someone to do the entire book, and I don't want somebody to do half of my book and then have to pay them again to do another half. I don't want to pay someone to do half of my book and then pay someone different to do the second half because that scares me. All of it scares me. But I have realized early in my writing career that it's a lot less complicated on myself, because there's no stress in me editing it myself. There's stress in hiring someone else to do it, right? But I guess I could do it the professional route, but I am a young broke influencer, so like I can't really afford that. Um or I would have to whip out my credit card and be in debt, which it might be. I mean, I'm not gonna say it might be worth it. Of course, that's obvious. It's obvious that it will be worth it, but it's just one of those things you got to consider, and that's what I mean. So that being said, I think that um with writing a manuscript, I shouldn't be scared of editing. I just doubt my editing mode, right? But when it comes to drafting, girl, I draft down and I love that about myself. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I'm just always in a place of finding a lot of ease and effort when I do it, and I really appreciate that. Um, I could go through draft majority of the time is draft 3 and 4, but I feel like this one is gonna be draft 2 and 3 because I am so ready to just get a glimpse of this book when it's almost done. I just need it. I feel like that's what's fueling me right now, even though I'm just a little burnt out. I'm not exactly burnt out, but I'm starting to get burnt out, and it's fueling me just to see a sneak peek of this book while it is, I mean, when it's almost there, right? Something I can read. That's what I feel like. So, another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was talking about beta readers, right? Because I have always wanted to get beta readers and to just really um what's the word, capitalize on that, because I feel like I would take that criticism so well. I feel like I would take all of it so well and really flip a book. And I say I would flip a book because I think that I just need the criticism, right? If anything, to you know what the book needs, what the book I need to take out of the book, and I could understand that person's vision completely, like 100%, I'm sure. But even if it was someone I don't know, maybe that's just like my false sense of confidence, but I want to try to figure it out. um and I'm starting to think that that's not fair for me to say, because I've been saying that for like a year and a half. um Ever since my friend Mel, she got beta readers for her second book. She's on her fourth or fifth book now, but it was like her third book, I think. Um on her third book, she got beta readers and she made a video about it. It was so good. Highly recommend that video. But it was about getting beta readers, and she just explained the entire process, how to find beta readers, where to go to find them on the internet, all that stuff. And it just really made me interested because I feel like I would love that criticism. I don't really get a lot of output. I mean, output. I don't get a lot of input when it comes to my writing. I just post about my writing process, and that's pretty much the only like thing that the outside world knows, is when I talk to my camera about it. So I don't think I would mind criticism, um even if it was like heavy criticism, which most of the time it's not. It's very friendly, appropriate, right? But I think that I would enjoy having beta readers so well. I don't know, I think I might for this book, because I um am wondering if this book is how this book is gonna do in the market. I'm just very curious because I did not do a lot of research before I started this book, which is odd for me because I normally at least look into it, right? But like even doing the bare minimum, I just didn't do that. So I'm curious about how this book is gonna do in the market. Um, I always get scared because, like I said, I feel a lot of imposter syndrome from writing nonfiction, and nonfiction is not the most popular. Like, not, I don't even think there are popular genres in nonfiction, let alone the entire genre. I mean, the entire umbrella term could compete with fiction novels, right? Does that make sense? That nonfiction doesn't even compare to fiction. I think hmm, I don't have an interest. I said I didn't have an interest for a really long time, and was writing I started writing a fiction novel. It's on volume 3, and when I tell you I breathe those books, like I would inhale and exhale, and it felt so natural through 3 books. 3 books. I think it was like 60 chapters altogether. Um, I breathed through those books. I inhaled them. It was really fun. The process was really fun, but would I write a fiction book? No, I don't want to, unless it's like a series, right? Like a light novel series is the idea I have in my head today. But before it was just a fiction series, right? A fantasy series, like an epic fantasy series. I'm sorry, but yeah, I think when it comes to editing and drafting, the psychological difference is very important that we are deconstructing in those areas, because those are the areas that we are not as intentional as authors. We're not as intentional with our focus. Because we just want to write the book and put it out there, right? Well, okay, and the difference is drafting is still, you know, writing and editing. Editing is a totally different story. And if you are an editor, like a professional editor for your books, you know, I'm giving you your tens. I'm giving you your flowers. You deserve them, because I'm not. I am heavily not, no. But I think that there are a lot of room for errors, which we're talking about, which is great. That's great. But there are a lot of open opportunities, is what I was gonna say before you know, the noise came out of my mouth. Um, there's a lot of open opportunities for authors to learn, to grow, right? So yeah, that was why I wanted to talk about um editing mode and drafting mode and the difference, right? What's up, you guys? So I am super, super excited about this video, because today we are talking about how I created a passive income through selling digital files. It was an ebook basically, and created an income off of that that helped me financially. And now that I am almost to financial freedom, I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it that I am going to give you guys some tips on not what I did, but more of the belief system, because it really does start off with um your limited beliefs and really creating a mindset, more than it is about putting yourself out there, more than it's about the skill set. You have to have the mindset first of all, and then you have to have the skill set, the confidence, right? The external work. But yeah, I am creating a passive income through my ebook, which is available on my website. The link will be down in the description. If you guys are interested, I will tell you more about the book um later on in the video, and then I'm gonna have a separate video where I'm only talking about the book later on. But I wanted to talk about this stuff first because it is vital to how I made it happen and how I made it work with very little to nothing. And I didn't let that stop me, and I kept going. So my first tip is for everybody to start doing the energy work, to start doing the spiritual work, the shadow work, right? For undoing what you learned about work, because it's actually a lot more important. Because I am giving you this advice from the point of view of someone who, you know, was working a 9 to 5, and I quit my job unexpectedly. That job was awful. It was racist. They treated me differently from everybody else. Everybody, all my employees hated me, and I was the leader of a team before I left that job. I trained everybody on my team. I was the most responsible, but not only was I the most responsible, I was held responsible for everybody else before I quit that job on my team. And I worked hard, I bust my ass, I showed up when I didn't want to, and I hated that job. They were racist, they always picked me out, they cherry picked everything I did. They, you know, looked down on me, all of the above, right? So I hated that job. I never wanted to serve tables ever again after that. And I was in the middle of becoming a qualified life coach. I had become a spiritual coach only 4 or 5 months. Actually, it was like a year at that point. I'm thinking of my life coach certificate. I had only been spiritual coaching for a year at that point, and I had just became a life coach. I was not coaching yet when it came to that, and I they forced my hand, and I had to quit. And I didn't realize, as someone who currently right now does not have a job, I did not realize how important it was to start undoing everything that we have learned from working a 9 to 5. If you want to be a solo entrepreneur, if you want to work for yourself, you have to really undo all that learning. You know, working for someone else, trading your time for money, giving away your energy and being exhausted, and not having time to do much of anything else outside of your job, right? We have to learn to undo those things because we are in a different space from building someone else's dream. We're building our own dreams, and we need to clear our heads, our subconscious, our thoughts, our ideas, right, of business and entrepreneurship to unlearn everything that we have learned about working a 9 to 5. And then the second point is that accepting not having a planned out future is a lot harder than it sounds, but we need to start accepting it. Start accepting it, that it's okay. I don't have everything planned out. It's okay that I have to hustle and grind every day at the beginning to make sure my rent is paid and I have food in my apartment and that I have gas in my car, right? It's okay to not have next year in your mind. And we have to start doing the shadow work for that, because we need to start breaking down our ability to be able to plan for our future, our ability to focus in, to lock in, right? We need to be hyper vigilant, right? We need to be heavily focused on the things that are important, and being able to organize everything from importance to least importance, and what you need to do today and how much you need to do today and how to get shit done, right? And that starts with accepting that you are not going to have your future planned out at the beginning. So the next point is that you have to be delusional. And you literally have to be delusional to work for yourself. It's a fact, okay? And my next video is going to be about the chaotic things that I did and said when I was in my delusional phase, when I first started working for myself. Keep in mind, I was undoing everything I had learned about a 9 to 5, and it was driving me crazy. I was having mental breakdowns. I would start crying and not be able to control it. My sadness and my grief and my what felt like depression, all those things weighed very heavily on me in that phase. But you know what? I kept going. And we're gonna talk about it a little bit later, but I didn't let my limited beliefs about who I thought I was or who my job told me I was affect how I was going to, you know, work for myself or be powerful or take the power back in my hands. Because at any time, you guys, you can take the power back, okay? And that is so important. But you have to be delusional to work for yourself. It's the truth. You're not working a 9 to 5. You're not trading your time and energy for money. You are going out there into the world and hustling. You're going out into the world to grind and to do it every day. And it's crazy. So you have to be crazy to do something like that. So the next thing is I listen to my inner calling. Okay? And I want you guys to say that out loud. I listened to my inner calling. I listened to my inner calling because even though a part of me felt like, don't do it, you're not ready, just get another job in the meantime, don't jump, you're not ready, that I had to realize and work it out with shadow work, with energy work, with meditating and running, right? I would wake up early in the morning, go for a run. I would run a mile and come back a mile, right? And that really was, I didn't admit it when I was doing it. That was really for the fact that I was figuring out that the world was telling me not to listen to my inner calling. The world, the external material world was telling me, keep sacrificing, stay in line, don't ask questions, live behind the line. And I had to really do the spiritual work to figure out that the world was telling me that. But I didn't listen. I took charge of my own life. I took the power back, and now I have authority. Now I have control. Now I hold the power, and nobody else does because I listened to my inner calling. And the next point is that I focused when it got hard. I focused when I got hard. I want you guys to say that with me. I focused when it got hard because I knew it was coming, right? A lot of you have not started yet, and I want you to know everything that you're fearing, everything that you are scared of, everything that's going to make you hesitate, that's crossing your mind now, is going to happen. And it's true. Your body, your mind, your spirit, your subconscious is telling you that because you can get ready for it. What is it? What is it that is stalling you, right? Because I say on my channel all the time, I don't worry about my angles. I just worry about my points and the rest just come, right? That sounds easy. That sounds like it's easy for me. But I have been doing it for a long time. And not only have I been doing it for a long time, when I was first jumping into it, and it was miserable. It was terrible. I focused in when it got hard because I knew it was going to get hard. Say it with me. Just say it with me once and I'll leave you alone. I focused in when it got hard. I focused in when it got hard. Now lock in. Now lock in. So my next point, my second point to that is that I invested in myself and I used my limited beliefs while we're on that as my roadmap. I used my limited beliefs as my roadmap. My book is about breaking the system exactly how I did it, exactly how people are creating content about on TikTok. My book is exactly about how content creators are talking about I'm beating the system and you can too, and I don't even know what's going to happen next, and I don't even know how I did it, but I conquered my limited beliefs and I did it. That's exactly what my book is about. So if you guys are interested in reading the the Codebreaker Bible, you guys can check it out. It will be on my website, and I will leave a link in the description so you guys can get a copy of my book because I used all my limited beliefs. I wrote them down. I journaled about them. I wrote out everything about my feelings and how I felt towards it. I then again I kept doing it over and over and over again. And then the very last one I explained why my limited beliefs were right. Why did I do that? So I could understand those limited beliefs because they're not limited beliefs. They're your body telling you to be scared, to get active, to fight or flight, right? But if you write those out, it is a map of everything you need to be going towards. Everything you need to be running towards. It's your roadmap, okay? Because I believe this. I believe this, and I say it a lot because I believe it. But they'll sit back while I'm being the main character, right? They'll sit back while I'm being the realist main character because the truth is everybody who claims that the shoe fits for me has never walked in my shoes. They'll sit back while I'm being the realist main character because the truth is anybody who claims the shoe fit has never walked in my shoes. Why do I say that? Before we get to the last point, why do I say that? Because I go out of my way to make it look easy. I go out of my way to make it look like a breeze, like I'm not having mental breakdowns, like I'm not crying like a child, like I don't have inner issues with my parents, like I don't just have anxiety, like I don't have depression. Why? Because I have embraced my limited beliefs, and those are the belief systems that are limiting me. And it goes all the way back to when I was a teenager, when I was 9, having panic attacks because I was scared I was gonna die before I ever lived my life. That is your road map all the way from the beginning of your inner issues, from your struggles, from your challenges placed on you by the system that wants you to fail. Okay? It's your roadmap. Not only do you use it to find your direction, you run into them. Run into them. Go towards them. Your body is telling you, trust it. They're not your weak points. They're your strengths. Highlight them. Okay, so um, the last point, and before we get to the last point, I really want to encourage everybody to go check out my book. It's so good. Um, I worked really, really hard on it and put so much attention and love and detail into it. But it will be available on the website and the link in the description. But the last point is that you guys can choose your heart. If you want to work for yourself, if you want to never have to work a 9 to 5 again, you can. You can stop being a part of the system. You can stop participating in capitalism, in consumerism, in whatever else is out there, right? You can stop participating if you don't want to. All you have to do is choose your heart. And it is important. It is important because I had to learn, and you will have to learn, that if life isn't going to wait for me, I won't wait to take my main character arc. What does that mean? I'm going to start saying, why not me? Why can't I do it? Why can't I? Why won't it come to me? Why don't I deserve it? Give me all the blessings I wanted. Give me all the opportunity. I'm ready. And do the work, okay? It's crazy. It's crazy, but you gotta be crazy to do it in the first place. So go out there and get it, okay? I believe in you. Thank you for your love and support. Stay tuned for my next video where we talk about my delusional phase, and I'm gonna recap every time I had a breakdown. Sounds fun, right? But there's gonna be a lot of helpful information in it. So make sure you stay tuned by subscribing. Leave a comment if you like this video. Smash the like button and have a blessed week. I never overthink, okay? I never overthink. I just hunt those.